They're children, Zoe. They're little children who get to vote. Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Virtue Signal. I'm Bill Whittle with my friend Alfonso Rachel. And today, Zoe, I want to talk about something that we seem to be getting a lot of. We've always gotten this kind of thing from politicians, but it just seems to be, if you'll pardon the expression, a pandemic now. Here's the setup. I was doing the Stratosphere Lounge last week, and somebody said something, made an argument that opposed something I'd said earlier. And they just put it down in two sentences. And I looked at these two sentences and I said, oh, it's irrefutable. I guess I was wrong about that. I changed my mind. I said that I thought Putin would be out of office by the end of April, certainly by the beginning of summer. I was wrong about that too. There's a number of things I've been wrong about, and when I realize I'm wrong about it, I admit I'm wrong about it, and then I change my mind to reflect the new reality. So we were, just before we started taping today, we saw that there were two consecutive reports of negative economic growth in this country. The definition of a recession is 2 consecutive quarters of negative economic growth. But now the Biden White House is trying to redefine what a recession is. And I'm reminded of a couple of moments in Matt Walsh's movie, What is a Woman, where he confronts some of these people. And one of these women he confronts, who's assuring him that the genetic differences between male and female is not real. Matt Walsh said, well, if I see a chicken laying an egg, I can say that's a female chicken, right? And she said, well, that chicken was assigned a female. He said, but she's laying eggs. And then the woman said, okay, but does a chicken have a gender identity? Does a chicken cry? And this is what I want to get at today. It's this idea of moving the goalposts. It's this intellectual dishonesty. It's cheating is what it is. It's the inability to admit that you're wrong about something and then go to all kinds of other lengths to make people believe that you never said what you said you said. We did a right angle on this not long ago about Biden saying that that inflation was transitory. Then they said, well, you obviously didn't understand what transitory means. This kind of weaseling out, right? This kind of just weaseling away from being wrong is first of all, it's just so petty. It's such chicken guano. You know, it's just so weak. It's so lame. And when it comes from the office of the presidency or any high level, any politician, anybody in authority who's not willing to say, well, I was wrong about that. Doesn't mean they were lying. I'm not accusing them of lying. You can have an opinion. I wasn't lying when I said I thought that Putin be out of office by the beginning of summer. It wasn't me lying, but I was wrong. And so what's the big deal? And I'm just getting tired of it, man. And one of the terms for this is gaslighting, which is, we're not going to get into the source. It was from a movie where they convince this woman that she's going crazy by having things happen and then have everybody else say, though that didn't happen. And you leave that person wondering about their own sanity since everybody else is saying, no, we don't know what you're talking about. A crash of dishes? And no, it never happened. We're a little worried about you. So I just wanted to get your take on this inability to admit that you're wrong about something, and much worse than that, the sense that in order to avoid having to admit that you were wrong, you are now going to start going through all of these gymnastics in order to convince you that what I told you, you were too stupid to understand, right? It's not my fault that the facts don't conform with what I said. It's that we're going to, number one, redefine what the word means, but mostly it's your fault for assuming that transitory meant something that comes and goes.
Yeah, man, they're indeed pretty flexible with this political and cultural yoga that they got going on, being able to flex all the way around and insert that. Never mind. This reminds me of the word that says, woe to those that don't know light from dark, bitter from sweet, good from evil, man from tran. You get the point. That's where we are, is where these people, and they've gotten to a place basically with this spell binding where, and I try to be careful with this because, these people, it's not that they make these compelling they're not compelling to me, but they're compelling to a lot of people. And it's like they're at a point where they're more effective at being wrong than we are at being right. And I'm not like, I've already come to that point where I've admitted I'm wrong. I used to think like these people. I used to be a liberal. And I came to my point where I was like, yeah, I'm wrong. And I'm not going to be wrong again by letting you people drag me into the way that you think, right? So it's like, and they're going to come up with their arguments, and obviously, they're very, whatever means of compelling methods that they have, it's working on a lot of people. You got, and trans is like a big word with them. When Biden is going in there talking about this is transitory, it's like, yeah, you guys are all about this transition thing, and it's all make believe. Okay,
that's it. Make believe, yes.
You guys are. It's like this is why Hollywood has been able to be so successful, because these people are wired for make believe, and they want you to believe something that's just not true, and that has translated into politics. And we have a make believe president who's telling us these make believe policies concerning the economy, the environment, marriage, reproduction. Everything about them is imagination and make believe. And this transition that we're going through, and see, here's the thing, and I learned this principle in studying martial arts. The most vulnerable position to be in is in a position of transition. That is the most vulnerable. That's when you're at your weakest, when you're transitioning from one movement to another, where you're not fully grounded and you move from one movement to another. That's when it doesn't mean that you're going to lose the fight, but that is when you're most vulnerable, and that's when you can experience the most pain. So this culture, culturally, politically, where we're being forced into, and y'all, that's just the pain of the transition. Man, we ain't seen nothing yet if they actually achieved their goal in leading us to where they actually want us to go. But see, they're leaning on the Islamic adage of heaven is what you make it, and hell is what you go through to get there. Right. And and they're selling people. They say they're on the other side of this is going to be heaven. It's going to be utopia and all that. So you just got to tolerate it and bear with it and struggle. Man, this is an unredeeming struggle. Right. Of course, we're supposed to struggle to get free and struggle to get strong. But people aren't doing that. They're struggling and they're atrophying in any sort of spiritual or physical or mental muscle that they would have. And we're being suckered by these people. So like I said, if people don't have a foundation upon which to recognize truth, and people are assuming that they can make their own foundation to recognize truth, it ain't working out too good. And we're being deceived by these people who are making more effective arguments for wrong than, unfortunately, we're making arguments for what's right.
Yeah. This is, like I said, this is moving the goalposts. And for people who try to get onto the truth, not because they have an inherent ability to tell the truth. People are trying to find the truth in order to figure out what the truth is and live a life that's in congruence with the truth. The most frustrating thing that somebody who's trying to do that can encounter is this moving of the goalposts. I state this, you state this. I provide a compelling, in fact, an overwhelming argument that the position I've laid out is correct just through logic and data, and you're forced to admit it. And then instead of saying you're wrong, you say, well, that's not really important. Here's where the new goalposts are. Now you got to convince me of this. And you can never, it's like trying to pin down Mercury, like, with your thumb. It's just like, it's impossible. And I think the thing that strikes me the most about this is just the sheer cowardice of it, the sheer chicken quality of it. It's so pathetic. It's so sad. And we see it everywhere. And I remember, in that clip I just mentioned from Matt Walsh's amazing film, this woman kept saying, well, that's your truth. That's your truth. I started hearing your truth maybe as early as when I left college in too. I might have been hearing that then. And I remember even then I thought, what do you mean it's my truth? I'm certainly willing to admit that two people can have different opinions about the truth because we're humans and our perceptions and opinions and attitudes, prejudice, all that stuff factors into it. But I don't believe there's such thing as two different truths. Mm-hmm. Something either happened or it didn't. Right? A chicken is either a female chicken or it's not. It's not a question of what a different truth is. What they've done, as always, we talk about this a lot, is they're masters of rhetoric and they're masters of language. And so what they've done is they have basically redefined the word truth to mean opinion, right? So when somebody says, well, that's your truth, what they're really saying is that's your opinion. And that's fine. You can argue with that. But when somebody, this is where they paint themselves into corners, which is why they have to move the goalposts. When they say that's your truth and my truth is different, then I can just prove that your truth is nonsense. Then they have to move the goalposts, because if they admit they're wrong on any of these things, then they're wrong about all of these things. And this is the thing about these people that is just, it's so dishonest, it's so cheap. It's so, I'm taking my football and going home because we lost the game. It's so childish. And frankly, when you get into some of these stratospheric levels of denial, like, well, that's a female chicken because it's laying eggs, right? Well, does a chicken cry? It's not what I asked you, right? We know what you're doing. We know what you're doing. We know that you're lying because you cannot face the fact that you've been proven wrong. And we saw, like when I talk about this at the highest level of government, we saw this during the Senate confirmation hearings for this last Supreme Court justice, not Chief Justice, Supreme Court justice, where they asked her something about, well, what is a woman? And her reply was, well, I'm no biologist. That's moving the goalposts. And it's lying and it's cheating. And I don't like it. And I can't believe that we don't just simply call these people out on it and just say, listen, you're lying. I'll give you one quick example of this, right? Where I actually did this to my amazement. I was dating this person many years ago, and her mother was a big liberal. The daughter wasn't, but the mom was. And so this was the first time I'd ever met the mom, and the mom said, my daughter is, is completely against guns. And she said, I'm actually not. And the mother said, almost verbatim, she said, speaking for herself now, the mother said, I would rather see my daughter raped and murdered than have her defend herself with a gun. That's what she said. That's what came out of her mouth. And I said, with all due respect, ma'am, that's just a lie. What? I said, that's just not true. We both know it's a lie. That's something you say at cocktail parties because it sounds incredibly noble that you're so deeply committed to your beliefs. But if you were standing there in an alley and you watch this actually happening, and I'm standing there with a gun and I could stop it, you would have me stop it. We both know that you're lying. And furthermore, I really did say this to her, if you really genuinely, honestly would rather watch your daughter be raped and murdered rather than have somebody do something to prevent this, then that's worse than being a liar. That's just being plain psychotic.
It's psychotic and it's evil. And by what method would this person use to murder her daughter? Would she be okay? She would be okay with this person using some sort of tool to murder her daughter than rather her daughter use a certain tool to protect her life, or you use that. So that's psychotic, man, and that's evil. That's some self-righteous.
But the larger truth there that I'm trying to get at is her saying that was her way of evading the reality of the argument that I was making, right?
Sure.
Because that's a pretty damn good argument for having a gun. Would you rather see your daughter? She said, no, I'd rather see my daughter get killed than to violate my principles. And that's a lie.
Yeah,
it's a lie.
And you know what that is also, Bill? That is some religious nonsense. That's some straight, and I say it again.
That's right. It's a religious zealotry. It's the inability. Yeah.
Absolutely. It's absolutely. It's just on a side note. Somebody, I think they asked me, do you think that the problem with what's going on in the world is that there's not enough religion? And I'm like, no, that's not the issue at all. The problem with the world is that there's too much religion, and that includes atheists, right? You have people who hold on to these beliefs religiously, as if they go by like what this woman has said. If she goes by that, she sticks to that narrative, there is something redeeming about what she thinks that she believes. And you do these penance to gain some sort of acceptance to whatever sort of social nirvana that you think that you can be in. That's religious nonsense, right? So, but you have these people, who will get caught up and they will split them hairs, man. They will just go ahead and drag you into a circle of semantics, and they just cannot admit that they're wrong. You can go ahead and provide the evidence, and at some point you just got to know when to stop casting pearls before pigs. You just like, look, you just got to stop. And you also, you mentioned, they're the masters. They've gained dominion with this language. And see, this is why we understand, man, more and more, we're seeing the world speaking the same language, if you will. And, we talked about it before, with the advent of like the internet, and people are basically speaking one language again, man. We're speaking in binary code. We can go ahead and we got translators and stuff like that. And communication is becoming more accessible every day. And what are we using this communication for? Where we're supposed to be able to clear up the confusion about things, we're using this common language now to do what? Spread more confusion. People are becoming more confused every day, despite all the information that we got out there and ways to be able to double check, triple check everything. People are becoming more and more confused. And it makes more sense why the Lord would be like, okay, the world is speaking one language. What you guys going to try to do? You guys going to try to outdo me. And that's not a good idea. So God comes with his whole posse and stops the Tower of Babel, the word meaning confusion, right? Because that's what people are doing anyway. It's like, I will give you over your desire. You want to use your communication to spread confusion? Oh, let me show you how it's done, baby. And that's what he did. So we have people right now, despite the blessing of this ingenuity to be able to communicate and clear up things, people are spreading more confusion faster and faster every day.
It seems like virtually every episode anyway, almost always seems to circle back to this idea of pride, right? One of the things that you get from these people is, and I just put this as a question I would ask them as clearly as I could. Okay, let's agree that there's a big disagreement on whether or not there's evidence of an actual God, okay? But for the sake of the argument, I'm not asking you to agree that there's a God. I'm just saying for the sake of the argument, if it was possible for God to appear in the room and accomplish anything that you said he could do, if it actually happened, would you take a knee to that? And they wouldn't. Right? I know they wouldn't. I know this is the answer. It's this kind of, I am unwilling to admit that there's anything greater than I am. Absolutely unwilling to take a knee. And I think the dynamic is kind of similar to the dynamic that you hear about in business and sometimes in show business and movies. And that is that, A-grade talent surrounds itself with A-grade talent, and B-grade talent surrounds itself with C-grade talent. It's the difference between having enough confidence and self-awareness and just confidence to be able to say, I would like to be surrounded I'd like to work with people who are better at this than I am. I like to work with people who are smarter than I am. When I did the shows for the Daily Wire, it was just such a delight to run into somebody who's a better editor than I am, and all across the board, and I don't see how that's demeaning to me or makes me smaller, but there are many people out there who cannot handle that. They just can't. Anytime they are surrounded by employees who speak up and say something smart, that person's either knocked down or fired. Because if somebody has a good idea in the minds of one of these B-level talents, they think that makes them look bad. My position would be, hey, we're all on the same team. Anything makes the team look better makes me look better. And if I surround myself by people who are better at everything than I do, that makes me kind of a genius. And this is where it seems to keep coming back to, is this sense that I will never admit that I'm wrong because I'm not capable of admitting that I could be inferior to somebody. That's how they look at it. It's like, well, if I admit I'm wrong about this, that means they win. That means that they're better than I am or smarter than I am. And I keep coming back to this. That's why I mentioned the thing about God, right? What's the problem with that? Do you really honestly think that you are the smartest person that ever walked, forget on this earth, you're the greatest intellect in the universe throughout all of history? You're it. You're really, is that what you really have to believe in order to be, comfortable with yourself? And it all just kind of unravels after that, right? You will not find it. They can't do it. They can't. And I suspect that this is a quality of pathological narcissism that has become the real pandemic in our society, is that sense that I can never show any kind of weakness, because if I show any kind of weakness, that means I'm worthless. And that's not how it works. Not for healthy people. Showing weakness well, first of all, admitting you're wrong about something is not showing weakness, it's showing strength. And more and more and more in the politics of the world we run into out there, we seem to find a group of people that are determined to find out what's true and try to live by what's true, versus people who began their anti-crusade by trying to define away the word true. Oh, that's your truth. I don't think that word means what you think it means. It's not my truth or your truth. There's the truth. I am willing to admit, because it's also true, that you and I can look at something that actually happened and have different opinions about what actually happened, but what actually happened.
Yes.
And when you hear them begin to do this intellectual dishonesty, this moving of the goalposts, and just say, well, that may be your truth, they've lost the argument, but they've actually now constructed an entire belief system where it's impossible to lose the argument, because as far as they're concerned, what I believe is true because I believe it.
Indeed, man. And you hit it on the head. You talk about pride. This is what pride does. Even with and they'll spread, even to protect their pride, they'll spread confusion. Right? Let's just confuse the issue. Let's move the goalposts, as you said.
Yeah, watching the president and the press, of course, the whole machine playing along with. This is about two consecutive quarters of negative. That's not really a recession. No. That's only a recession when Republican does it. The real definition of a recession is something that we're coming up with, that we're working on, because we don't want to own the fact that we're in a recession.
Yes.
Okay, Ronald Reagan was in a recession, and he knew it. And he got us out of it because he recognized it was real.
Yes. Or they may even recognize it real, but they don't want us to.
They know it's real.
Yeah, but they don't want us to know that. And yeah, that's that pride that comes in there, just the unwillingness to recognize the truth. When we're talking about this pride, even going, where they're using, even if they got to confuse things. Like I said, when we talk about that tower, when the Lord came in and put a stop to it, what was their motivation? Their motivation was rooted in pride. Of course, they even said it. Let us make a name for ourselves, and we're going to build this tower, right? So you have these leftist, Democrat voting, collectivists or whichever, trying to make a name. They want to be represented. The alphabet just keeps on growing. They want to make a name for themselves. They want to be represented and all that sort of stuff. And in terms of, and they'll even try to lean on scripture to do it, cherry pick scripture, or say that, well, your Bible doesn't say this. I'm able to say, actually, yes, it does. But instead of trying to cherry pick it and use it to use something that you don't even believe in to justify your worldview, that doesn't work either. So to your point, if the Lord were to appear to people, which he did, they still don't want to believe. Even demons recognize Jesus. It's like, oh, snap, it's the Holy One of God. Are you here to torture us before our time? They knew who he was, called him by name, the Holy One of God, the Son of David. They knew. But they don't want to obey him because they want their own truth. Demons believe in God,
Yeah.
but it's like
they're a lot more honest than Democrats.
right? It's kind of like in the root of their name, but they don't want to obey him. They want their own truth. That's the way it's been from the beginning. The devil himself, man, I want my own truth. It's like, dude, there is no your own truth. But in their imagination, sure there is.
Well, just to wrap this up, when you look at people like that person saying, "Does a chicken cry?" That kind of intellectual dishonesty. You look at that, and a lot of conservatives say, and I think with some serious evidence, that liberalism is a mental illness. And so I'd like to get to what that mental illness is, because it is. And I don't think it's like a mental illness that comes upon you. I think that what the essence of this modern left progressivism is simply arrested development at an extremely early age. Because there's no better example of somebody clinging to a belief that is obviously untrue and inventing ways to get out of being wrong than a 5-year-old that is covered with chocolate and crumbs all over their mouth. And the mother says, "Have you been in the cookie jar?" "No." "Are you sure?" "Mm-mm." "Mm-mm. No, you said I shouldn't have any cookies." Crumbs and chocolate on their mouth, right? "So you're saying you didn't get into the cookie jar?" "Mm-mm." "Well, why is it that you have crumbs and chocolate on your mouth like you just ate a cookie?" "Well, this man came through the window." "Really?" Yes, a man came through the window and he was looking for cookies. And I told him, "You can't have cookies because you told me that I shouldn't have, and he shouldn't have cookies either." But he came in and he took some cookies and he smeared it against my mouth, and then he went back out the window again. And you'll hear children say this. Right? You'll hear them because they're like, you've seen those videos where a dog has done something and you look at one dog, the dog look at you, you look at the second dog look at you, you look at the third dog, and the dog's like, they know they're caught. They know it. But there's something about a child that understands he's going to be punished for this, and so he just lies through his teeth, just openly lies through his little teeth. And this is where so many people on the left seem to be arrested, age 5, 6, 7, 4, something like that. You have been caught doing something that you know you're not supposed to do, and you're lying your way out of it, and you're doing a miserable job of lying your way out of it. But you are so incapable of standing up and accepting responsibility and consequences that you're going to continue to add layers to this lie, and it doesn't matter how ridiculous the lie gets. It doesn't even matter that you know and I know, we both know you're lying. You just will not admit it, because if you admit it, then you have to face the consequences of it, and they won't do it. They're children, Zoe. They're little children who get to vote.
Man, that is it. I don't know if I can add to that, man. That's where we're at. It's like, dang, we're being ruled by children, and and the world has become like a rubber room, and not only children, but like kind of like the patients are running the asylum, and it's one of those. And I'm like, what's more sad, that we're being ruled by these people, or that we're allowing it to happen?
Yeah. Right on, exactly. That'll do it for this edition of the Virtue Signal, made possible by chickens. Chickens make this show possible. We don't have the membership numbers that we would like, but we're not actually looking for members. We have a large number of chickens that actually donate to these shows and make these shows possible, and our chicken count is extremely high, believe me. We'll see you next week right here on the Virtue Signal.